Howdy, y'all. This is the Nimisha talk that took place earlier today, June 20th. I just wanted to add that Nimisha has made a specific code for our group to receive free shipping on her new book, the Materia Medica Remedies for the Banerjee Protocols. I will include that in the Facebook group and here on the YouTube. It's WANFGIK8. So go to www.buythebanerjeeprotocols.com, select the book, and at checkout, apply the code. Thanks so much. Enjoy.
Welcome, and thank you so much, Nimisha, for joining us. Just to get started, tell us a little bit about you and how you discovered homeopathy.
It was kind of by chance. Being Indian, I lived in India and been generally exposed to, the natural health system. But I was born in South Africa, so the Western influence was largely there. So I didn't actually use much homeopathy when I was in India. But then on a visit with my cousins, one of these compounders, as they call them, my cousin had a bad cold and just gave her these 2 pills and it was fine. So late in my kind of academic career, I was in Dubai looking for a change. I was coming to the UK and just wondering what I should be doing. My background is pharmacology, by the way, from South Africa. And I saw someone with a book on homeopathy and I started talking to her, and she put me on to the London College of Homeopathy. And then the rest was history. I came down thinking, okay, the Queen uses homeopathy, so it should be great, not knowing that it actually is quite an uphill battle, as we all know, in the West, with the huge, pharmacy industry against us. But as our director said, any publicity is good publicity. And, I guess I qualified in 2003.
Howdy, y'all. This is the Nimisha talk that took place earlier today, June 20th. I just wanted to add that Nimisha has made a specific code for our group to receive free shipping on her new book, the Materia Medica Remedies for the Banerjee Protocols. I will include that in the Facebook group and here on the YouTube. It's WANFGIK8. So go to www.buythebanerjeeprotocols.com, select the book, and at checkout, apply the code. Thanks so much. Enjoy.
And I'm still here, so I guess that is true. Because it can be quite disheartening for people starting out when you get bashed and there's a lot of these advertising standards units in this. So, but yeah, homeopathy is thriving worldwide. So it's very exciting.
Great. So tell us a little bit about your starting out your practice. I mean, you said it was an uphill battle, but were you getting those early successes that, kept you going?
Well, I was fortunate in that when I was studying, I took a one-day job with an existing clinic, a homeopath. And, it kind of learned the ropes. She was fairly classical. My training was more practical homeopathy. My first couple of years was an in-between classical. It was the London College of Homeopathy. And then I switched to the practical college in London, which has been around since the 1990s. And that was a great move for me because it was, the director, Robert Davidson, who has sadly passed away since then, was quite a maverick. So you could just go out there and practice and not be scared. And so I used to, do all these kind of making up remedies for her, answer phone calls, and that's how I picked up. And then fortunately, she decided she wanted to take some time off and she handed the clinic over to a few of us. So that was great for me. And I would advise anyone. I know times have changed now with working from home more, etc. But that's the best kind of scenario you can be in is a multidisciplinary clinic. So we all owned that clinic for quite a while and then just packed it up about 5 years ago because our rent was due. The landlord wanted the place back. So
can you talk a little bit about the College of Practical Homeopathy? Like, what is it? It's not classical, is it? Or how is it different?
No, when I was doing a talk on combination remedies, I went back in the historical and we had a homeopath called Thomas Morn, and he came up with these combinations. And so he was a maverick as well. And then it was all his students, and Robert Davidson, who founded the Practical College, was one of the students. And a current college is the College of Homeopathic Education, and Marcus also trained with Robert, etc. So I think the current group of homeopathic colleges fell under that, the practical approach. And I'm finding that more and more, that's the way it's happening. Even in India, I think the Indian homeopaths are also kind of adopting the clinical approach. You'll see that a lot, which is on the practical side, as opposed to the true classical homeopathy.
So when you say practical, though, does that mean, okay, we're going to go through and kind of work the layers out, or how is it really different from?
Yeah, so I think I have a kind of mini course, which is the 21st century model for homeopathy. And it's following the Isiaga method, which is what was taught in the Practical College, which is effectively the layers method. So the topmost layer would be the drug layer. And then you have the disease layer. So the disease layer is where the Banerjee protocols come in my opinion. So they're a part of practical homeopathy. They're not just practical homeopathy, if you know what I mean, because practical homeopathy is multifaceted. And the constitutional prescribing is, again, part of it, because once you've cleared the layers, you've reached the healthy kind of constitution. And that's part of that prescribing. So it's still practical, but if you go in too deep with the single remedy, what we see, the overall prescription or the constitutional, you could get more aggravation if you haven't cleared it, because it kind of almost hits a ceiling, the remedy, and then you get or you get no results at all.
Okay.
So since we're kind of mainly concentrating on Banerjee protocols, what happens at the clinic is, because they don't have time, they're seeing thousands of patients, so they're not really taking a full case. So they're prescribing at the disease level. It could be an acute, like cough, cold, vomiting, diarrhea, or it could be something as serious as cancer. But they won't go into the questioning of what else is going on in terms of the life, what caused it, how did they get to this point, which is why I think one of the things you wanted to know is my success rates with Banerjees. It's difficult to answer that for me, because I came to the Banerjee protocols in about 2015. So everything that I've been taught, I'm not going to forget that. So in fact, I've been learning more and more since then. So I went more into the detoxing of the detox layer, the disease layer. So if I have, my kind of niche is cancer. So my first port of call will be the Banerjee protocol, because, they're so effective. They've been tried over and over. And when I was at the clinics, I would go in quite early, and the senior Dr. Prasanta would be there by about 9 o'clock. And it gave me the opportunity to sit and ask him questions and, all the niggling stuff. And he then just saw cancer patients or chronic kidney and liver disease. So when the patients came to the clinic, they would be, I'm sure you've seen the pictures of the huge outdoor. So they were mainly outdoor, and there would be a window where they would be kind of screened as to what they had come for. So if they were cancer, they would go, a certain amount would go to both the doctors Banerjee, and then there were a few senior doctors that also saw them. And the rest would go to the junior doctors or the ones who did the acute clinics. So I used to generally sit in with both the doctors Banerjee during the day, and the evening clinic at that time it's still an evening clinic, but it's now on the same premises. But at that time, it was at their old Banerjee clinic. So you kind of drove somewhere. And that was a very basic clinic. I'm glad they've actually stopped that. But that evening clinic is a free clinic. So you had tons of people and you just sat behind a table. So to get back, so I think I found my interest more in finding a niche, and that was cancer, because a lot of homeopaths are wary about prescribing for cancer. So I got the opportunity to sit with both of them and learn.
So do you use that practical approach where you might take off the first layer, or you said you go right to the Banerjee protocol? Is that right?
Yeah, no. So I combine the stuff, and this is what they do too, but they won't combine like a detox, but they'll give you a few prescriptions. So you'll get something for a headache. So let's just say brain cancer. So you'll have your Ruta and Calphos, and then the person will have a headache. They'll get the picric acid belladonna. Then they may have a stomach upset. Then they'll get something for that, veratrum album. So I have to kind of be mindful of the fact that the person is going through the cancer. But if in the West, it's most likely that they would be on some chemotherapy, for example. And I know Dr. Prasanta especially was like, no, you can't be on anything. But they were taken as gods there, and the population is different. They would like, yes, whatever you say, but not in the West. And you can't actually take that responsibility of saying, no, I'm not going to treat you if you're doing chemo. So then what I do alongside is I'll give a chemo detox or radiation to manage, or I'll give something for their nausea, etc. So it can be quite a few, but the basic protocol would be the Banerjee one. And that's been very successful. I won't say the problem with cancer is by the time they come to you, it's generally gone too deep. Then they're either on this allopathic stuff. So I find the best result, and this is what I think the aim of the Banerjee protocols was, to kind of keep the quality of life as much as you could till the end. And I've found that very effective with the protocols. So I've had people who pass away but have been lucid till the end, and they could be with their families, stuff like that. They've not had such bad nausea, etc.
Have you had cancer cured, I guess, if it's early stages?
I'd say I've had mainly people come with late stage cancer, but I've had the prolongation of life for sure. They've been given 6 months, they get at least 3 or 4 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking that on. I know, yes, like a lot of homeopaths, one, have trouble treating people if they're on allopathic medicines, and then 2, a lot of cancer, people shy away from that, especially in the West. So that is greatly appreciated.
It is, but I think I learned this from a friend of mine in Calcutta, actually. She was very upset with Dr. Prasanta because her husband had cancer, and obviously the practitioner wants to be, positive and, don't worry, we'll look, and he passed away. So she was very bitter and said, he told me, I said, but, he's not going to say, no, this is like the end stage or whatever. So I'm very careful after that. And I noticed that Dr. Prasanta would also kind of not say, yeah, we're going to cure this. He would say, we're going to do our best, which is what you can do.
That kind of gets to the evolution of the protocols. So I know that you came out with the Additional Protocols book. And my question, I guess, is, are those truly additional? Are they like third lines? Are they improvement of the original? I know the cancer one has been fairly consistent, but I mean, some of the other ones, we've seen a little bit of an evolution. And sometimes I'm of the mind to go to the Additional Protocols book and start with those, because it seems like maybe those are the latest and greatest. Can you speak a little bit to that? Because again, just for everyone listening, Nimisha was the one to put those additional, the 250 additional protocol Banerjees together. That book is so much more readable. And I want to thank you for that. Like the index is great, and the names of the things, and even I use that to better find what's in the original Banerjee book. So 1, just thank you for that, and then 2, just kind of speak to how you've seen the evolution of the protocols.
Yeah, so it was funny because I was there in 2018 after Dr. Prasanta passed away, and I met Dr. Pratik Banerjee. And, we got talking, and I said, you really got to come up with a book. And he said, well, yeah, I know the previous book is an amateur one. I said, no, it's not amateur, but, because you can actually, I did such a small book. And you go cross-eyed after a while in editing, and I'm sure there's so many mistakes, and the same thing with my Materia Medica. And they have such a busy clinic. They don't have time for this. So the fact that they even put it together was amazing. But I think again, I think it's very important to understand that this is not it. There's so much more to the Banerjee protocols. And my initial aim actually with this book was I was going to a conference in Germany, and the previous time Dr. Banerjee had been there, and we had imported the Banerjee protocol book, the original book, and it did really well. So I was going back again, and I said, I've got to come up with something like, how am I going to pay my bill, to go there and back? I think this is what people need to realize, is that I'm self-funded. I'm not an organization. So when I make a trip, I'm paying the cost. So I thought, okay, I've got to make it worth my while and still be there and share stuff. So I put together this book, and I had been to the Banerjee clinics a couple of times. So, I took notes. So this is what the additional protocols are. And I also went through, as I mentioned, that they were very generous to share, the knowledge, but it was mainly on the computers. So the computer information, it's just actually the cancer protocols and liver and kidney disease. So that's been fed into the computer. So you'll have the patient name, the number of visits, and basically the prognosis. But again, it's done by a layperson. So you have to kind of go through it and see what remedies were given. So that's where I started picking up information. And that's where the so-called additional are from. So it's their acute clinics that I used to sit in at, or whilst I was sitting with the doctors, anything that came up, I would make a note. And actually it became fun after a while, because you could then guess what the protocol would be, So my aim to put together that book was, again, to pay my bill for Germany, but also to share the stuff. I mean, how many people are able to go there? And I thought, it would be a nice addition. And that's why I made sure that they needed the original book. I was trying to add to the book, not take anything away.
Yeah, I think you did a great job. So there was a question. It's about what the name of the book. So it's the Additional Banerjee Protocols book. You can get that so I would direct everyone to your website, right? So it's is it by the Banerjees or the Narayana Remedies?
Yeah, either one of them. You can, so it's by the BanerjeeProtocols.com or NarayaniRemedies.com. So it's NARAYANI remedies.com, which is, of course, my passion, the Narayani Remedies. And I'm finding a lot of people actually coming to the Narayani Remedies from the Banerjee protocols or the book or whatever. Because again, as I was saying, if someone comes, even with cancer, at the moment I have patients who are very nauseous from their chemo, and we have a really good mix called Gastro Mix, which has a lot of remedies, but she loves it. My dog is sick every second day or third day. We just give him Gastro Mix and he's sorted. So the only thing I would say with Narayani is it takes a while to get used to how many remedies there are in the combination, but they've been put together very cleverly by Swami Narayani. But that's a whole different chapter.
Yeah, we might come back to that. Let's stick to the Banerjees. So my one last question on that is the protocols, that you said you could guess what the next one would be. I mean, do they just memorize their protocols, or do they have their own lists that they reference?
I think after a while it becomes second nature, because you're seeing the same stuff, right? Over and over. So, and Dr. Prasanta especially was very open to the junior. I'll say junior, it's relative. Some of them have been there for 10 years. So typically in his office, there would be one person sitting, a homeopath, who would be taking the notes, and they would discuss, maybe look at the slides. And then, the starting point is camphor, right? So we already know that as lay people, we know that. Then it would be the protocol. And that didn't change too much if it was a first visit. I think where the changes come is depending when the patient has come to you. So if they're quite far gone, then you may need to go to the second line or combine the first and second line. So typically in a first line, you would have a tissue support, like I would say the lung cancer. I haven't got my original book here, but say calicar. So even if they were far gone, that would be one of the main remedies that would be there. Then the variation could be thuya or conium or, depending. So he always used to say that this is evolving. It's not set in stone. I think they put together the book to kind of establish that this is, a proper system and to be recognized by the allopathic field. But they've not had time to update it. So you'll find I think that's why I was also keen to put together the Materia Medica, because once you start understanding the remedies, or even if you go on your own and start understanding them, then okay, I can use this instead of that. And that's why you can, change the protocol slightly and you'll still get good results. If you find the first one isn't working, for example.
Yeah. So that was one thing that again, coming from the classical background, I was like, well, I see 3 lines. And so if I read each of these in the Materia Medica, maybe I would pick the second line first because it also matches the symptoms. But I know, again, kind of Joette being the loudest voice on this, it's always like, just stick with the first line and then, go through how they have it. And, I haven't. And actually, we have another user in the Banerjee group, B. Coleman, who does that as well. She's very good about just sticking with the first line and using that. And she muscle tests to kind of confirm. So I think that's helpful for her. So do you have a sense of, the only other thing is I've seen people take the first line and maybe adjust the potency. Like if they feel something too energetic for them, they might drop it down a little bit. But how do you
That's what I don't do, actually. I will never change the potency.
Okay.
Because I think one of the main things that they said when they came to do the seminars, I hosted a couple of seminars here. It was the first time they came to the UK. I was introduced to the Banerjees by a Japanese friend of mine, Yuko Yabiko. And she, again, we met through Narayani Remedies. I used to run a lot of seminars. And she used to actually go to Holland to see them. They used to come to Holland. And she wanted me to go, and I said, I don't have the money, I didn't have money to be a sponsor and that sort of stuff. And I really regret that. I wish I just borrowed some money and gone and, come across them earlier. And then I used to travel to India a lot. And she said, I really want to invite them here. Why don't you? And I'm not getting any joy via emails. So I said, okay, I'm going to Mumbai. I'll fly to Calcutta and personally invite them. And I did. And that day, actually, Dr. Prasanta was ill. So I just got like 10 minutes with Dr. Pradeep. But it was good enough because we started the communication and then they came over in 2016. So one of the main things they say at their seminars is a different potency is a different remedy. So that's stuck with me, and I don't change the potency because I think that's their forte. The fact that they've identified that this works best. So no, I don't change. I may combine some first line and second line. And I think also I would advise people, if they are not experienced, to kind of understand the cancer protocols properly, because, and I'll give one kind of fact, is that with the metastasis, you got to stick with the original protocol because that's the tissue that's metastasized. But then you also have the second organ that's got the cancer. So, it's not that straightforward. So I think you should get some professional advice for that.
Great.
That's, some of the stuff, of course, is all. And I can understand why people say just stick to the protocol, but that I would say more for the acute stuff, the other stuff, the chronic stuff, you got to kind of gauge and understand.
And I think you said that your book should help with that. So tell us a little bit about the latest and greatest book, Materia Medica for the remedies in the Banerjee protocols, right?
Yeah. This is the Materia Medica. So somebody got confused from my post, and he got a little bit, I don't know. Anyway, so there are 2 different books. This is from 2019, the additional protocols, which I think a lot of you have. And then this is the new one, the Materia Medica, which I launched at the JA8C this year, which is that's what pushed me, because I started it before COVID and it stopped, it went by the wayside. I had brain fog and all the stuff that goes with, the whole atmosphere. And then I became a grandma and I thought, okay, now I got to finish it. And my kids were like, oh, we can't hear about this book anymore. So yeah, so I'll take one of the common ones. Okay, so I'm going to look at Cantharis. Okay, so Cantharis. So what I've done here is I've used Materia Medica like Robin Murphy's Materia Medica, but I've zoned in on the clinical symptoms that actually match the Banerjee protocols. So for example, they're used for ulcerative colitis, cystitis. So I've identified those as the main clinical reasons to use the remedy. The sphere of action and what are the symptoms? So burning pain, intolerable urging to urinate. So that's a cystitis thing. And then I've gone into the 3 different potencies. So they use the Cantharis tincture, which is mainly applied externally to burns. And that's from their book under the burns protocol. The 6C is used for ulcerative colitis. This is the second line of treatment. And it's used for the inflammation and scrapings from the intestine, which is one of the symptoms. And then the 200C is the one which is used for burns and cystitis. So it then makes sense to use that potency for what, for cystitis. I would not use a 6C.
Yeah, so wait, go back again. So do you identify that the 6C, there's the portion of the Robin Murphy Materia Medica that would point to the 6C, and then the portion that points to the 200C?
No, the Robin Murphy's Materia Medica just has a whole lot of symptoms that I've picked up. But I mean, there's like 200 symptoms, but I've picked up like 6 that are related to the Banerjee protocols. So burning, just burns, for example, that's the Cantharis tincture applied externally. The 6C is for ulcerative colitis, where you get the stool. So the symptom that's come out of the Materia Medica is stool, passage of mucus-like scrapings from the intestine. That would be from a conventional Materia Medica, not only Robin Murphy's, but other ones. So that's the actual symptom that I've taken. And then I've matched it with Cantharis 6C, ulcerative colitis, second line of treatment. And I've connected the two, that this is why Cantharis is used in this, in this protocol. I can't categorically say that the 6C is, but the Banerjees have said that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've had a couple study groups and the ladies were like, you say Ignatia 200 is more for the mental symptoms. So I would look, at the mind and say, when you want to use Ignatia, these are the symptoms that you're addressing, right? The sadness, the depression. Whereas if you wanted to go to the 6C, well, you're looking at more of the physical side of things. Yeah. So it's kind of versus like wanting to hit something gently versus more intensely. You would go to the 200 to get it more, in more of the acute kind of idea of it. So yeah.
I mean, I agree. Like for acutes, I would go 200 because that energy is there. But in terms of the Banerjees, they've had so much experience. So if they say 6C works for this symptom, I would just stick with that.
Mm-hmm.
At least try it. And if it doesn't work, you can change. But my first, thing to do would be to go with that.
Great. So did you learn anything going through the Materia Medica?
I did. As I was saying, the first thing I actually learned recently is that Materia Medica was a term used even by conventional medicine, for symptoms, etc., associated with the medication. And now the modern term for Materia Medica is pharmacology, and my background is pharmacology. So I learned that. There must be some connection there. But yeah, I think I learned a lot. It was very interesting. And I've referenced all the books I used. Unlike a lot of Materia Medicas, which don't tell you where the information has come from. So I've referenced that, and that's been interesting for me as well. So just to give you a simple example about the brain cancer protocol, the Ruta and the Calc-Phos. And I actually looked at the herbal action, and Ruta is an anti-cancer, herb, etc. But one of the things that I learned from one of the remedy relationships is Ruta and Calc-Phos follow each other well. So when a remedy follows, another one well, it completes the action. So that I started looking at remedies a bit more closely now, which, I didn't before, I would say.
So the concept that, Calc-Phos would follow Ruta well, is that as far back as Kent, or is that, again, Robin Murphy is kind of, I think Materia Medica works on all the best of everyone previous?
No. That's from another book from Abdul Rahman, who's from Pakistan. So he didn't consult Robin Murphy at all. Robin Murphy, I found, he's a great guy, and we learned a lot. We actually met him personally because he used to come and lecture to us in those days. But what Robin's done really well was take the conventional, Fatak and all that, and kind of put it all together. So there's no kind of individual references. Whereas what I've tried to do is if I've come across a certain point, I'll kind of highlight it that it's from this book.
So tell us more about the book.
Okay. So let me tell you a bit. So anyway, I've covered about, I think, over 200 remedies in there. What else can I say? There's a whole bibliography at the back. There's an index.
So what was your goal, I guess, with writing the book?
I guess, as I said, that, something in this pharmacology brain of mine is to kind of learn how, rather than kind of prescribe blindly, it was about understanding why a certain remedy was in a certain protocol. And I think what happened is, and I think Joette mentions this in an interview as well, that when you ask them, why is this remedy in there? They would say it's from my experience, because obviously they weren't there to teach us homeopathy. And when I was in Germany with Dr. Prasanta, he kind of laughed and he says, so do you want me to teach you homeopathy now? And I think that kind of made me also, my Materia Medica knowledge isn't great. So I thought, okay, let me start putting something together, and one thing led to another.
If you use Ruta, would you always then use Calc-Phos for whatever the issue might be?
No, Ruta that's only for the brain cancer that I mainly use. No, any kind of brain condition. So you find when you have multiple sclerosis, anything to do with the brain, if the kind of disturbance is in the brain, that's a standard protocol that's used by the Banerjees, the Ruta and the Calc-Phos. So, MS, for example.
For MS, you would use the Ruta and the Calc-Phos together as well?
So that would be because it's related to the brain. And then you prescribe on the symptoms.
On the acute symptoms that surround it, kind of.
Or acute or chronic, whatever.
And then in terms of combining remedies, maybe would your Materia Medica help people decide how many of the, say they had 5 issues, they wanted to take 5 different protocols for it. Would they ever maybe not take one of the remedies because they see it is closely related to another one and another protocol that they're taking?
Yeah. So I remember there was a lady who came into the clinic. I was sitting in with Dr. Pratip, and he saw that she had some kind of stomach problem, but then she also had the emotional ignatia. So he just prescribed ignatia because he said that covers both.
Oh, interesting.
So I won't say that my Materia Medica will do that necessarily. You may pick up stuff that, I didn't know that you could use this for this, but I'm not rewriting a whole Materia Medica. I'm just concentrating on the Banerjee protocols. So I think that's important to understand.
That's great. And then I think I saw on yours, so you also have Transforming Homeopathy is where you have your courses and links, I guess, to the Narayana remedies and by the Banerjees. You mentioned that you have it where you can buy the book and all of the remedies from. Yeah,
so we actually don't have any in stock at the moment. We sold out. But they are actually made to order. They're not sitting around. They make specially to order. So what it is, it's about. So we have these cases. So there'll be 200 of these remedies, and we've included all the main ones. I would say 99%. So if you don't if you can't get something, you'll be able to have it within easy reach. And each bottle actually has a special, we import these pills. They're not the poppy size. Those are too tiny. But these are a size 20, and we get 150 in there. So you have a lot of pills there. And so it's really good value. And there is, on the post, I put a special for the two of them together.
For July. Awesome. And then are there mother tinctures? Can you talk a little bit about their use of mother tinctures? I mean, truly that's herbal remedies, is it not?
Well, there is a slight difference in the preparation. So I have the explanation somewhere, which I haven't seen for a while. But basically, according to the pharmacies, they use fresh herbs for the tinctures, as opposed to the herbal tinctures could be made from dried. There's some kind of. So I actually just use the ones that the Banerjees use, which is from India.
Okay.
They use, and I don't know if everyone's aware of so that's the tinctures, but then when they say to use remedies as liquids, so that's where I make a slight change, because they use the 95% alcohol, basically a medicating potency, as a liquid remedy. So they'll just pour it in the bottle and give it to. I actually have a sample of that. I'll show you in a minute. So I feel that's a bit too much. So I would probably dilute it down to 20% if it's to be given as a liquid. And there are certain remedies that they find are better absorbed as liquids. I think it's also ones that, if someone's got stomach problems or swallowing problems, it's difficult with pills. So they give them as liquids.
So would you generally stick to that if they say, and when they say, I guess in liquid, they're taking it from the liquid preparation. It's not that you could take a pill and put it in liquid?
Yeah, no.
Oh man, okay.
Yeah, I know. Listen, what I say is whatever works. I know it can get expensive, it can get difficult to get. Who am I to know whether it works or not? I just like to eliminate that doubt that it's going to work or not. So, and I have access to the remedies. So I just stick to what they say, except giving it as a 90% alcohol. Or if I do that, I'll say, put it in a glass of water. Just put 2 drops in a glass of water.
Okay, great. Good. All right, awesome. Well, we do have some questions here. So Ellen is asking, is it possible to get refills and or single combinations for the kit?
Yeah, we haven't got that far because we've just kind of launched, but yes, you can get refills. I think we start doing all that. We do that for a company that we supply, so we can do that.
And then the combination
gets a bit expensive. I'll just be upfront that we ship from the UK and it can get expensive.
And then the combination remedies. So that might be, I guess, more on the acute side. Do you have combinations in those kits, or is it all just the singles?
No, in the kits we don't, but we're looking at putting together a kit for just combinations, because we've got about 40, I think, in my book, but I have to dig a bit more and see if we can make it up to a 50, then it's worthwhile.
Okay.
Yeah, you can get
someone asking about a course for intermediate students. So you have a few courses. You want to tell us about those?
Yeah, I'm again, the platform I do the courses is actually Simplero. It's a Danish platform. So it's transforminghomeopathy.simplero. I've been concentrating more on the Narayanis. I do have a Banerjee course, but I'm looking at revamping it, doing it more like a study sort of thing. So give me till September and I should have something, by then. When people say intermediate, again, it depends what they mean. We have to so I probably will offer different levels and then they can join where they think is best for them.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. Deb is asking, why would Ruta not be in the dementia protocol? Is that right?
It should be. You can. This is the thing, that you can adapt these remedies, and so the moment I put this thought in your mind, the Ruta and Calphos are for brain, that's where I would change. So I think, again, I don't have my book here, but the dementia is more for the symptoms, the forgetfulness, etc. But they're not going to the core tissue level, the brain tissue level. So yeah, would use that.
Okay, awesome. And then Amy is saying, it's helpful that you've broken out the potencies for each protocol in your book. And then she's, asking, are there general rules for choosing potency, and what is a good way to learn about how to choose a potency?
Ooh, this is, I think every homeopath is asked that question and there's no answer. I think it varies. And what we found recently, actually, because I listen to a lot of Indian homeopaths, I've trained with the Joshis, and they actually found that during COVID, for example, Bryonia 1M is what was needed. And you would never think that. Now, interestingly enough, with my Narayani remedies 50 years ago, Narayani said that after a cough and cold or a lingering cough, you use Bryonia CM. So I thought, wow, so it's I would say, I like the 200C. Because when you've got any kind of acute, you've got that energy. So it burns up quite a bit. Babies burn up the remedies really fast. But where you have to be careful is where some person could be quite sensitive. So again, Robin Murphy always said, start low and go upwards, because then you can control it. If you've somebody can kind of aggravate on a 30C. So then you have to know how to manage it. So I think that's where there's no rules as such. There used to be rules that for the physical, you go low and often. But for me, taking 30C 6 times a day, I would prefer to take 200C 3 times a day. So that's my reasoning. I mean, I think the 30C is just pharmacies being careful. You get kits from them, so they tend to stick to, okay, let's be safe and start low, and you can always go up.
Amy, if you can figure that one out, you will be a billionaire, because nobody really knows.
Yeah, nobody really knows. I think it's also a lot. It's your knowledge and then intuition, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. All right, we have another question. This is more kind of technical details. Someone bought something on your site for $35 and haven't been able to access it. So how long does someone have access to the things on your site if they've bought it?
I mean, they should be. They can message me on info@transforming.
Okay, info@transforming.
Homeopathy.com.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be able to help them, or someone will. Sorry about
that. Someone says, transport costs for Europe are from the UK. Is there an amount above which transport is free?
Well, in this particular case, I think we have that special for the book and kit and the book itself as well.
Mm-hmm. So you have your Transforming Homeopathy Facebook page, right? And that's where this would. Yeah. So if you want to go look, there's a special for July. So Transforming Homeopathy, look it up on Facebook. And I think you can kind of go through there and it'll say what the deal is. I think it's for July, right?
Yeah, till the end of July. Yeah. And the thing is, people need to register on that site to be able to access. He sent me a thing that they can't access it. And I've put in the text, you need to register.
Okay. Make sure you
access the online shop.
Yeah. Someone says they have several courses and they have lifetime access. So just register.
Yeah.
And then does it become difficult to treat with the protocol if the disease repeats after a few years? Does it become difficult to treat with the protocol if the disease repeats after a few years?
No, it shouldn't be. But then I think it depends how often it comes back. If it's been a few years, and this is again where you would take the case. It's really important. I think we're not the Banerjees, we're not the experts. We're, just traditional homeopaths. You have to take a case, not just because then I think what's also important to remember is when you take the case, you've got everything down there. So if there's a remedy, a change after the remedy, it could be bringing back an old symptom. And then you know that this is an old symptom. And it's not something that the remedy is never going to cause anything. It's going to cause things to come out that need to come out. But then okay, you remind them that you had this and this is a good thing. So even if it comes back very often, then you got to go deeper as to what's their susceptibility. And that's when you would go either to the miasmatic nosodes, etc. The Banerjees do use, you've got in their book, I don't know if I think I'm doing a course here, but when they say every 7 days, they're actually treating the susceptibility. They're going at the miasmatic level. So this is to prevent it coming back. So that's again where you would look at if there's something that keeps coming back. But if it's a few years, then no, it's not an issue. The protocol will work.
Got it. Awesome. And then someone was just asking, is the June special the same as the July special? Just one special till July, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, gosh, thank you so much for your time. It's been almost an hour here. Do you have any last minute success stories that you just want to share? Maybe how you've seen your practice change when you started using the Banerjee protocols? Anything you want to share?
I think the main thing is it gives you confidence to just go out and do it. I mean, again, being trained practically, that I had a few tools in my hand anyway. So that was good. I think being trained classically, that can be difficult. But I had Narayani remedies from 2003. So even today, it's grown because people are getting success. So whilst you're taking the case and trying to figure out what to give, the patient will leave with something because I have it there. And this is what Robin Murphy, again, used to emphasize. So he said, they've paid you money. They want to leave with something. But if you're doing a deeper classical prescription, you're not going to be able to do it whilst they're sitting there. At best, it'll be a guess based on 3 or 4 symptoms that have come up. And it may not be the right one and nothing happens, etc. Whereas he would give a tissue salt or a herb for them to go with. And I give a Narayani remedy. I could give a herb, I could give a tissue salt, but I also have Narayani remedy. So the same thing with the Banerjee protocol, straight away, if they have a prognosis, you can start them off on with these things. So I think that's been really beneficial. And I don't think I would have necessarily ventured into the cancer support without the Banerjees, because when I was at the clinic, I found people coming back after brain surgery, young boys, and the cancer had come back. And this was the tool they had to improve. So I would say, I think it's just, I would just say that look beyond the Banerjee protocols. Don't just think this is the be all and end all, which I find happens in practice. And then you get disappointed if it doesn't work. You got to really understand. And I'm hoping that the book will help in that aspect, in terms of even just exploring further, not relying on my book just as a Bible sort of thing, but to explore further that, I didn't know this, I didn't. I mean, that's what I learned, actually.
Well, so tell us a little bit about the Narayana remedies. To me, it's sounding kind of like Bach flower remedies, where it's kind of palliative. It's, it's just going to kind of help you where you are.
Actually, interestingly enough, they do have Bach flower remedies, or they say bash flowers, in there. So what Narayani did was so the other interesting part is I'm from South Africa and Narayani was from South Africa. So that's where the parallels came in and drew me to these remedies. But she actually put together these combinations because of the need. There were so many patients and, not enough time. But she used her knowledge of anatomy, physiology, etc., exactly like the Banerjees. But she put together quite a few combinations as she went along. So you'll have the gastro mixes for diarrhea and vomiting, which was quite prominent there. So if you have an acute, that's what you give. And you're sorted in 2 doses, And whereas if you're going to do a remedy at a time, you don't know, and then you get frustrated and you give some Calpol or whatever. So there's a cough CCA, which is very good.
I was going to ask about coughs. Those are the worst.
Yeah, coughs are the worst. So you have to go to CCA. It's called coughs, colds, and asthma. It's a brilliant remedy. I know some people in Denmark, we taught Narayanis there, and they signed up to do homeopathy after using those Narayanis because it's so effective. But again, it just becomes a confidence thing that, okay, homeopathy works. And, your energy changes. I think otherwise, if you come from a place of fear, I don't know if this is going to work, then, you're not in a good place. So I think that's what I love about the Narayanis. I don't just use the Narayanis. This is what people are mistaken about sometimes. It's just another tool. So I'll use a detox method. I'll use Narayanis for the acutes. I'll use Banerjee.
So they're a good acute remedy.
Sorry?
The Narayana remedies are good for acutes?
Well, they have, again, 250 remedies in the range. And so I would say 60% are for acutes or 50%. Then you have organ support. The organ support is also very good. So, for example, like if I have a patient with Parkinson's, I've got remedies for the tremors. I've got an organ support for the brain. I could maybe add Ruta and Calc-Phos to it. It depends. Or I could just, things like that. So I can combine. But there are remedies for all these conditions, which are very effective, even when combined together. So you can actually put 4 combinations together, but you just have to get over this hump of, wow, so many remedies. But we've converted a lot of classical homeopaths to Narayani.
That's very exciting. Great. Awesome. You've given us so much to think about and look into. I appreciate you putting all these things together. I know it's a lot of work and you might not, have remuneration for it right away. So I appreciate you.
And it's great. You're doing a great job. I see you're up to like 5,000 members. That's amazing. That's amazing.
I know. Well, so again, it's wonderful that the Banerjees are it's so accessible because it's so free, right? And we have the blogs from Joette as well. And so it just kind of gets everyone over the line. Okay, try it because it's, it's not going to cost you anything.
Yeah.
And then, it's easy to bring, people on board, and then it's just sustaining it. But yes, wonderful.
Yeah, so in this book, actually, in the Materia Medica, I've mentioned some Narayanis and some conventional combos like ABC, which people know about, the homeopathic Calpol. So I've mentioned it again under the remedies. So if it's aconite, so ABC would be there. So have a look out for that. There's some pointers. I've given some tips for children that I came across, which is not Banerjee necessarily, but, useful. I know that a lot of moms use Banerjee, so I thought I'll put that in.
That's great. And then someone was asking about actually the detox remedies. Is that included in your book, or where would people find out more?
No, because that's not Banerjee. Banerjee is just used. I was giving an example that for example, if, again, going back to my Parkinson's case, this gentleman was on 4 different remedies. 4 different drugs. And that's another thing I would advise if you have patients or family members, look at the drugs they're taking, because a lot of times they repeat it. It could be a generic name. It could be the same thing. This guy was on 4 drugs. One of them was banned in the US, but not in the UK. One was just a different name, the same substance. He was having a double dose of that. So that's kind of, again, from my pharmacology background. But it's easy information now. We used to use this BNF, which is a little booklet that the pharmacies get, but you can find all this online. So make sure that you look at the medication. And the reason why, so the detox remedies would be those in potency. So you get them from the pharmacy or you make them up on a machine, depending, whatever. Because I found that the side effects of those drugs could be mistaken for symptoms. And I don't find, in my experience, camphor enough for that kind of medication. An antibiotic here and there, that's okay. But for example, with the recent vaccines going around, we do a full detox of those because there are a lot of side effects.
Would you detox like the full vaccine schedule from somebody, like right away, just to clear the air?
Generally, yes, because the thing is, it's kind of the next time they have it, it could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So they say, okay, so my child has had vaccines and nothing's happened. But yeah, great. Most likely nothing will. But then there could be an incident where he has to have a booster or something, and that could push him just right over. And especially if the parents have had mercury fillings and things like that, we're passing all that on. So the generations are getting weaker. And that's why we're having so much more autism, etc.
Is there a detox for the mRNA vaccine?
We get the vaccines themselves. we use. So that is the ones that have been produced and given.
Okay. And then
doing a detox course sometime. I keep on promising to do that, but again, hopefully by September. So
okay.
I'll probably join your Facebook group and then just, is that okay to post it, or I can tell you to post it, or?
Yes. Yeah. That'll be awesome. And then I guess the other question was that, you said you were detoxing drugs that people were taking regularly. So would they detox them and then keep taking them or try to get off of them, or?
Yeah, I'm talking about, so one of the reasons for detoxing is also weaning them off. So if it's something, that, so again, you have to do it very slowly. You got to do it with the doctor's, support. So like Prozac, let me give you an example of Prozac. You can give Prozac as a detox. You can do a whole regime, or you can give it daily in a low potency. So what happens is then the body needs less of the allopathic Prozac, and you're able to wean off. But again, very carefully with experience. I'm not just kind of, making it a flippant thing. You have to be very careful.
Okay, so I would say probably go check out your course whenever that comes out.
I mean, I'm not trying to promote my course, but I'm also don't want to kind of trivialize what you can do.
Well, would you be detoxing and giving other remedies for whatever the underlying issue was? Okay. Yeah. So you do it currently. Okay, cool.
Yeah. They will need the support. So this person I had, it took her 6 months, but then I had her like on Narayani calming, for example. I had her on stress balance, and I think she told me she said that she used to actually have a phobia of going on the tube. She'll get a panic attack. But the fact that she had that remedy with her, the calming, just did the trick for her. So she didn't have to switch to a citalopram, for example. And, especially in the younger people, you want to do that because they want to have children and things. You don't want to pass all that on, all the toxicity.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's a question here. So going deeper means prescribing single remedies.
I don't know if that's going deep. Well, yes. I mean, in terms of, again, what I find a little bit, there's confusion about your constitutional remedy, because according to the Isiaga model, your constitutional is your healthy. So pulsatilla won't be a constitutional necessarily, but it's an overall prescription. So if you see a lot of pulsatilla coming through, something's happened to that person to push them into a pulsatilla. They may have been sent to boarding school, or the mother may have left for a while. So there's abandoned feeling. So that's what I mean, the deeper, but you go deeper, but you go step by step. And if you see a real strong remedy coming up, you give it alongside whatever you're doing. There's no harm in that. But again, individual prescription, to be honest.
Awesome. Well, wonderful.
For your homeopathy course.
I know. Yes, we got it. Great, Nimisha. Thank you so much for your time. And I will say you are a practicing homeopath. So if anyone wants to use your services, of course, they can reach out as well to Nimisha and purchase her books. She's got lots of great material out there. Thank you for making the Banerjees more accessible through that additional protocols book. And then again, if you buy the book, you also send out updates to those.
Yeah, I haven't got too many new ones now. It's just time consuming, to be honest. Yeah. Because I have to go through what I've sent out already and, go through my notes, and I'll get there. I'm a grandmother now, so.
Congratulations.
It gets, he's going to be a year old, but it's, I'm sure all grandmothers know how it is, and we live fairly local to them, and a lot of good.
Here's one selfish question. I need a book, and I know that you're supposed to look at the mother to decide what the baby needs, but seriously, there's got to be a baby book. Surely everyone has phases where, the baby is just waking up every, 5 minutes instead of whatever. It's what is the remedy for that? Is it really that you need to look at the mom? Sure, maybe, but there needs to be a baby book.
Well, the thing is, so the sleeping problem, for example, one of the things is, the adrenals, the mother's adrenals, what happens, and this is again for future mothers, is that don't run around till the last minute, because you're using up your adrenaline and then you're depleting the baby's adrenaline. So when they are born, They're depleted, so they don't sleep. They're crying all the time. So my daughter did a lot of meditation. She was fortunate. She was in a good job. She could take it a bit easy. So that's one advice I would give, that just do a lot of calming techniques. Make sure you're sleeping, etc. Because otherwise, yeah, you're going to suffer. The baby is going to suffer, unfortunately. But carcinosin is supposed to be a good remedy for that.
Okay, great. Yes, more of that. I did have one consult with my classical homeopath for something, and she gave rest talks. And I was like, where did rest talks come from? Like, how did we end up on rest talks? And it worked brilliantly, so it was great. But it's just like, I need to be able to access this quicker. So if you need any more kids, do a baby book. That would be great.
Okay, I'll do that. The one thing I don't know, are you talking about your baby?
Yeah, my baby.
My daughter actually paid for a sleep nanny. And that's the best investment she made. I'll be honest. I used to think, but the guy puts himself to sleep now. Unbelievable. You just got to be very firm. You just got to be, they'll get there. How old is your baby?
She's 8 months. She's my third baby. So she's doing great. But it just feels like she was doing really well, and then something happened, but that's it, right? So it's like 6 months they're teething, right? 8 months, and my sister-in-law was like, get the mommies at 6 to 7 months. So it's like, okay, how do we help them, support them through this, and then sleep regression support. It's so characteristic. It's like, it's interesting because it's like, is this natural? Is this meant to develop the relationship between the mom and the baby? But you hear, some kids are a dream and some kids aren't. So it's like, surely there's remedies to help with each of these stages.
Yeah. I mean, I would, as I said, I would probably, if she's teething, use that ADC, the homeopathic calpol and things like that. And calming, Narayani calming.
Okay, I'm going to look at the Narayani remedies. I think great. Well, thank you so much. And we will, so everyone on the call, I will put this as a replay. I might clean it up a little bit, but it'll be available for us kind of as is. And then I might put it on the podcast over at Health and Homeopathy. And if there was anything particularly salient, I'll put it on YouTube under Health and Homeopathy as a little snip so you can share it more easily. And then just for everyone else a note, so we got Nimisha in because I didn't know her book was coming out, and I just happened to see it. I don't know how I saw it on the JHC or something like that.
Yeah, I think that post.
And then, but we will try to get with Fuad Hussain, who is another Pakistani homeopath, hopefully this week sometime, and a couple more. I will be going back to work. Again, I'm on maternity leave in August, so I don't know how frequently we'll be able to do these, but hopefully I'll get a couple in before I have to do that. So thank you, everyone. And Nimisha, I think she might join the group. So don't inundate her, but she'll be available at least to tell us about her courses. And maybe if you want to consult with her, how you can do that.
Yeah, and thanks for joining, everyone. And, thanks for support and everyone who's bought my additional book and hopefully going to buy the Materia Medica.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Angela.
Bye.